Hey folks, Beast Baby Prospector Tripp. Hey, I wanted to show you this barrel. I have a barrel here off one of my pellet guns. It's an AEA Challenger 22 caliber air rifle. And one of the things I don't like on it is this is where it seals. It has these O-rings that go on here, and of course that seals, and of course you have one on the other side too, like that. And then when the air blows up here, it goes into these little air ports and of course pushes the pellet. These little grooves here though are only 1 millimeter wide, so 1 millimeter O-rings are not very common in comparison to like 1.5 or 2 millimeter thickness ones like this. So what I'm gonna do, I'll put that on my lathe and I'm gonna deepen those a little bit and widen them up so this 1.5 will fit right in there. Hopefully you can see that. Now I'll put it on my lathe. I'm going to go down and over a little bit, make sure I keep a nice steep wall so I don't blow the O-ring out. And yeah, anyway, the story too is the reason I'm even doing this is the O-rings on here when I was shooting, the slop is too big on the receiver and the O-ring actually blew out here. And so what that tells me is that the slop in the machining is not sufficiently good to use this 1 millimeter O-ring. You need something fatter. So that's what I'm doing. Peace, baby. So folks, I'm gonna use a little of this tape, put it on these threads here, just to keep them clean and don't get anything gunked up too bad. Like that, I think. Yeah, it looks like it's not wide enough and probably not deep enough. But anyway, we'll have to go a little bit more. All right, okay folks, I think I got them deep enough now, and I think they're pretty good now, possibly. Let's see here. I'm trying at a few fits there, and you can see it's pretty far in the groove now, and a little bit sticking up still, so I could go deeper, but the bottom line is I don't want to go too deep because it's like adding salt. You know, once you get it too salty, all you can do is cry a lot of times. So I think I got the depth just about right on both of them. They're both exactly the same. So, you know, put O-ring on both those and slide it in there, see what happens. Okay folks, there's the whole air gun. And of course I modified the barrel, and it's got to go into this guy right there. Hey folks, that dude goes right in here like this. Yeah, let me try and do this with one hand, like a regular human being. Yeah, this is probably not the normal way to screw in your barrel. Yeah. And what's important when you screw this in, it's got those ports all the way around the barrel. You can see one of them there. I can do this without screwing my camera too much. If you unscrew it a little bit, see how the ports are all moving to the right? So that's not centered properly, right? So you need to center that dude right up. Pretty centered. Yeah, I think this one right here. I think that's centered. What you do is you tighten this nut up here to fix the barrel. I'm gonna try and put that one port right smack middle like that. Okay folks, I got that dude all snugged up now. Nice and centered. Got that nut nice and tight. So yeah, next thing is here's this little valve that goes in here. Okay, this piece here goes right in here, folks, right in there. See how it's crooked like that? there's no way this got to slide in there, right? All right, hitting it like a big dog. So you got to make that real nice and straight. I think that might be straight enough, maybe. Maybe. Okay, folks, one thing you can do is once this valve's basically pretty straight, you can put it in there a little bit. And if it can get just the edge of it in here just a little bit, then you can, it's a real tight fit. So you can kind of, you know, make it back and forth and make sure you're nice and centered up. And as you can see, I'm pretty nice and centered up there now. Slide that dude on in there. Just like that. You can adjust it. Oh yes, you can. Easily leave it right on there. And on this other side, it's just got a nut, actually a bolt. But you screw that dude in there. You can see it's wallowed out a smidge from me adjusting it about 1,000,000 times over. That's right, I can't be too, I'm pretty picky about stuff sometimes. Yeah, I'm generally like a slob, but you know, on some stuff I'm just like a nut. All right, there we go. So you just got to snug that up a smidge, and then if you're shooting and you want to adjust it, you can loosen a tiny bit. You can adjust this dude to wherever you want, you know, slow it down or whatever, and snug it back up. You don't need to make it real tight, just barely snug. And just a little bit past like finger tight, just a smidge. I'll give you an example here how tight. You just put that wrench in there. And you do about like one finger like this. That's it. That's it. There's no way you can turn this thing now. Yeah, it's a good compression fit. So you just barely snug that up and you're good to go. All right, let's do some more. Hey folks, what we have here is we have the air tube. This is where you put in the air and pressurize this tube. And then the air comes out here. When you shoot it, the spring blasts this thing forward, hits that little metal guy down there. It's called the poppet, and it pushes it in. The air comes out, it goes through this tube, and it pushes the pellet out the end of the barrel. So anyway, these two pieces here have to be mated together. And so I've already put an O-ring on here. I'm gonna put just a tiny bit of lube on that dude. This is silicone oil. I only want to use silicone oil pretty much on this kind of stuff, on especially on PCP air guns, because they're very high pressure. You can't use regular oil because it's combustible. Yeah, that dude just goes right on in there, right? So let me stick that dude in there and I'll be right back because I don't want to hose up my O-ring. This bolt has to be all the way forward like it is, because when you cock the gun you pull this back, right? And if you have it back and then this thing is sitting here, which has got to be the bolt, that guy here has got to be before this so you can cock it. If this thing's forward like that and you put this on with that condition, you'll be on the wrong side of the thing. So you got to push it forward. I just close it like that, and then this bolt here that actually catches here will be in front of it. So that's important. All right, folks, it slunk right in there. I could feel it go. So I'm hoping it did real good on the O-ring. I've done this before, and it, you know, if you're careful, you can do it without damaging the O-ring. But if you do damage it, you gotta whip it apart, do it again. So I'm gonna put another little piece together here on the bottom to hold this thing together, which is not that guy. This guy right here. Okay, folks, that dude goes on there just like that. You just line up those holes right there, and you put in these two bolts, which I'm gonna do right now. Okay, folks, I've fixed those two bolts. I screwed them in and just snugged them down. It's an air gun, not a Mack truck. You don't torque any, even if it's a pretty good size, you know, 5mm bolt there. Yeah, you don't want to reef on it, you know. It's all aluminum, and you don't want to get on it too hard. But anyway, that kind of holds the whole thing together. And of course, this is the trigger release. Anyway, I got to put the bolts in the back, and it's got actually a rod, which is this short rod here, and then the spring, and then that end cap piece, and then those bolts right there hold it all together. So yeah, I'm gonna slide that stuff right on in there and I'll be right back. Folks, you can see I slipped that rod in there. I got the spring in there. One thing that's important, that if you had it cocked like I did, if it's cocked, the stuff will all be hanging out here, right? Like that. So even you close the bolt, it's still cocked, right? So you try to push it all in, you got spring pressure. But if you pull the trigger, pushing this guy here, then it all goes forward, right? So that's another point. You got to make sure it's released forward so you can put this piece in. Okay, folks, I basically just got it all slipped together. It's spring loaded a little bit. And I don't have these screwed in, but I just got them pushed in there so it can't come flying apart. But that rod, one of the points are is one end of the rod goes in this piece right here, and the other one goes in the front up here. So if you push this in, you get it all lined up, but it won't go in that last little tiny bit. Your rod's not in the front hole. So take everything out, take the spring out, make sure that rod's in that front hole, slide the spring on, then slide this thing back on, and it should go in there. You gotta wiggle it around a little bit because you got a spring and you got the rod. It's all gonna go together. But anyway, that's how I do it. Hey folks, here's another point here too. That as you're screwing this in, okay, you're screwing this away, and then suddenly it starts to get tight, right? What's happening is this screw is not screwed in all the way and it's hitting right on this little edge here, right? So just don't go reefing on it like, oh gee, if you're not super mechanically adept, you might do that. So you have to screw them in a little at a time, you know, maybe about 2 or 3 turns each. So you can give it a couple turns there, right? You ain't got to torque nothing hard, right? It's the air gun. Not Mack truck bumper. So I don't know if this one's touching or not up here. Well, it's very close. All right, it is touching. So if I had just reefed on it, I could have damaged something. So you got to turn this one in a little bit. Now I know the other one's almost in. So this one here should be just fine. Snug it up just a tiny bit. Snug this one up a little bit. Now this thing, as far as tightness, right? This one's got to be a smidge tight, but not much. You ain't got to get on it too much, right? Just a little bit like that. Oh, that's plenty tight. This guy's plenty tight. Oh, see, that's plenty tight, right? I'm getting on it a little bit, but it's tight. I'm not getting on it all the way, just a little bit, right? With 2 fingers, pretty much. All right, finger here and finger there, and just torquing it a little bit. That's it. Plenty tight. All right, now I got a working air gun. You can cock it, right? I can cock it. So you see that? It's cocked, right? This is being held back. If I push this down, it shoots. So I could cock it, put a magazine in there, and boom, hit that, and it'll shoot. That's right, it's already together. Be louder than heck, but it is together. All right, next piece is basically this piece right here. We slide that dude on, and that's of course our scope mount and our trigger assembly and our rail assembly. That's all put together still, but there's no need to take it apart, so I didn't. I have, but I don't. All right, let me slide that dude on there. I'll show you. If you have this little baffle gizmo on the end that holds your suppressor tube all together, you gotta take that off. That dude slides on there just like that. Goes right over the barrel, just like that, right? All right, next piece is this little rod here. So this guy, at least on mine, it had all right, now come on, this focus, you're killing me, baby, you're killing me. Yeah, this is the side that has a flat in it. You see the flat there? Yeah, right there. So it goes this way, because this guy here's got a set screw down here, which smashes a flat in it. And this one here, this side screws right on into this guy. So I just happen to know from experience, at least on this gun, I screw it all the way in here till it's finger tight. Then I just back it off a tiny bit, just about 1/8 of a turn. That's it. Just so it's got most of the threads in here, but it's not bound up tight. Because if you tighten this up and then you bound it up real tight, and then it is linked to your trigger, there's a chance your trigger could be crap. And I don't want it to be crap because mine's about 1 pound after I worked on it, so I don't want to wreck it. So yeah, this thing here screwed in all the way, just like I did. I'm not sure on other ones, maybe it'd be different, who knows. But I screw it in all the way. I just back it off just a little bit so it's got a tiny bit of slop. Make everything smooth. All right, now this piece here slides right into here. All right, so I just continue to slide this thing back this way until I feed that dude in there. Okay, folks, you can see I got this gun just kind of hanging on my legs, right? One of the things is to get this where it's not binding on the barrel and all that, right? You gotta kind of do it really freely like that. I don't know what else to tell you about that. It's anyway, you don't want it to be, you don't want to twist this whole thing and start torquing on your barrel, in other words. So I just kind of let it all just sit there kind of free, you know, it's still loose, it's just sitting there. And then I got this position. This is one of the important things here too, is that you have to have your safety all the way forward like that. So when you adjust your trigger, it hits the safety, and then you can, of course, do a final adjustment by moving the whole rail back and forth. This piece here, you know, it's connected to here, and then you can get your trigger all set up here. Let me get to it. Okay, folks, this is kind of an important adjustment. So I have the trigger touching against the bottom of this thing, so I only got just a tiny bit of wiggle, right? Here's the safety, it's all the way forward, so part of the trigger, this forward piece up here, is touching the bottom here and preventing the trigger from going all the way back, and thus releasing the trigger mechanism. I got mine cocked right here. You have to have it cocked to make this adjustment. And then once I got everything kind of copacetic where I got just a little bit of slack here, like that, I just snugged this down a little, not terribly, just enough so it's all kind of together. And then you take your 3mm, tighten these dudes up. I like to tighten it, as you're kind of upside down here, I'm sorry about that, but I like to tighten it while it's all just kind of hanging like that, so I don't get too much torque on the barrel. Because it does, you know, actually clamp to the barrel and clamp to the air tube, both of them. So anyway, I try to minimize all of the unusual stresses. Otherwise it'll shoot like you're shooting a banana at it or something. Yeah, it won't shoot straight, that's for sure. These guys here, I give them a few little snugs here. Now I got everything basically positioned where the safety worked and the trigger worked and all that. Just give them a little snug. You know, obviously I got the wrench the long ways, right? So I can't get on it. But you don't need to get on it too much, right? You can get it pretty tight like this without damaging anything. Once again, it's an air gun. It's not a GMC Hemi. Okay, I got them all kind of fairly tight, just a wee bit. Yeah, let's come back here. I'll come back, zoom back a smidge here. Okay, so I got it cocked, right? And then if I hit the release here, oh, it didn't even shoot the way I got adjusted by hitting the release. That's pretty impressive. So yeah, I got a little bit of slap. It won't shoot the gun, but if I turn off the safety, of course it'll shoot. Now I'm going to put my elbow like against the bolt or something, right? Or my arm like that, so it doesn't slam forward, because I don't want it to slam forward. I just want to test the trigger to make sure it works. Oh yeah, look at that. Barely touched it. Bam. The bolt came forward, so it released the hammer in here. And so that's how I test it without slamming everything. You know, you don't want to dry fire your air gun. You don't want to just, you know, if you hit the trigger right now, this thing's going to slam forward, right? Because normally it's like this with the pellet in there. But we're testing, right? So I kind of put my arm against it so it can't come slamming forward. And then I'm just trying this trigger. A little bit of torque here. Yeah, still about 1 pound. Yes, terrifico. All right. Okay, baby, I'll come back here. Kind of one other thing with the trigger. Every time I go to cock this thing and put in a magazine, getting prepared to shoot, I grab these two guys because this has got a little bit of slop in it, right? And if this hits the edge there of your trigger assembly, it could, you know, if it was back a smidge, it could prevent it from going into safety. So I always just kind of pinch them when the gun's all together. Just a habit to keep it safe, so I don't shoot it inadvertently and blast a hole in my foot or something. All right, let's put a little bit of lube on this barrel because you can see it's a little scabby already. I'm probably going to re-blue it here one of these days, but one by one, do things one by one. This guy here is still loose. Oh, that's another thing. When you take it apart, make sure you loosen that before you unscrew your barrel, just in case it's binding or something against it. Okay, folks, I think I got her all tweaked out here real good. Cock it. Put the safety on. All right. If you pop the safety off, then of course this bolt's going to fly forward, right? So I'll put my finger on it here and just push the button right here. Just to keep it from slamming, not tearing things up. Okay, I think we're all good to go. I screwed on the air tube. He's got a bunch of several baffles in here. I think 8 of them, and another little piece. All right, all I gotta do is just put on the stock. I think we're ready to roll, baby. Let's see what happens. One screw goes here, and one screw goes back here. Yeah, it's pretty hard with one hand. You gotta be a professional. Okay, I'll snug those dudes up. Okay, we're pretty close. Most people probably would never believe that this thing has a 1 pound trigger. However, I got my little trigger gauge right here. Let's try it here. There you have it. A smidge less than 1 pound. Anyway, it's right about 1 pound. I've tried it many times. About 1 pound. That's it, baby. Peace. Just also one other little modification that I made. Just have a regular old fill probe here. I think it's 8mm. Usually stick that dude right on in there, right? Kind of in the middle, right? About like that. And then you can fill up your air gun. And most people, of course, I guess would just pull it out, right? It does have this cap, right? But what I've done is I've cut this cap like that. I just did it on my grinder real quick, you know, like an animal. But I should have probably did it cleaner, but yeah, it's just the way it is, man. So anyway, I usually just push this dude in here like this. It's got this nice little groove right there, right? And I push this dude down, let it all fit right in that groove. And now this thing can't come out. And we're all raring and tearing to go. And what I like to do, I get these little rubber gizmos. You get about 1 million of them for about 10 bucks. And I just slide that dude on there like that to protect it. And then I fill it up, done, put it up. That's it. That's how I do it, baby. Peace.
1,113. 1,113. 1,109. 1,109. 1,109. 1,109. 1,109. 1,109. 1,109. 1,111. 1,109. 1,109. 1,111.
Okay, folks, you did pretty good. Yeah, you saw some of the data. Shooting these things too fast at, 1100 or whatever the heck it was. But still, they're not horribly inaccurate. I was pretty impressed with how accurate they were still at 1100. Typically, pellets are accurate. About 820-ish, 830. Very accurate, up to about a little over 900 sometimes. It just depends on the pellet, on the gun, and all that junk. But as you can see here, I was doing a 5-shot group here. I had 2 in this hole and 2 in this hole, and then I spazzed. But it's still only about a 1/2 inch, the whole thing. And then I shot, these ones here are all my slugs, the ones on the bottom, playing around with them. Fairly accurate, but I was wiggling around some. These guys, I had like 1 flyer, but I think there's 8 shots there, about 1/2 inch. And here I was just thinking around, and I shot the first magazine just to see if the gun functioned. Anyway, yeah, 1,100 feet per second, right? It's still only half inch, all 5 of them at 28 yards. It's pretty good. It's pretty good for it. Yeah, I cleaned the double out of it too. I had the barrel apart and all that. Several cleaning swabs through, maybe about 15, 20. And so until the barrel kind of loads back up with, you know, a little bit of lead and gets kind of in its groove, it'll be a smidgen accurate. But actually, it's pretty accurate. All in all. Okay, anyway, there we have it. That's what I did. That's what I'm doing. That's what I done did. But it don't leak now. It didn't, this O-ring didn't pop out of there, which that's what happened before. It literally popped right out of here, you know, between the receiver and the barrel. You know, talk about sloppy machining. That's right, piece baby. It won't no more now though.